Well, thanks for inviting us out. I really appreciate the opportunity. We love speaking to groups and kind of sharing jiu-jitsu around, and we're a big part of the Baylor Jiu-Jitsu Club here. They come and they train with us at the academy and here on campus. So if you guys are ever interested in training martial arts, you can totally let us know, and we can make that happen. But I don't want today to be like a sales pitch. I want today to be informative and fun. So I have a quick poll I'd like to take real quick. Who in this room was born after 1993? Okay, cool. So 1993 was when I took my first martial arts class. So I've been doing martial arts for about 24 years now. I started off, my dad was actually my first instructor, and we trained karate, we trained taekwondo. I have a second-degree black belt in taekwondo, and I competed at a very high level. I was a world champion in 1997, so I was like 13 at the time. And it was just a fun hobby that I did. Then I joined the Air Force, and I was a medic. I was stationed in Tokyo. And when I was in Japan, I found a kickboxing academy. And once a week, they got on the ground and wrestled. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I'd already been training for over a decade, and I had no clue what was going on. I was like, oh, there's this big piece that I'm missing. And so I started my training there, and the kickboxing instructor was Brazilian. So he was teaching us Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he had zero English. So I had to learn through watching. And it was fun. It was a fun experience. So I continued my training. I have professional mixed martial arts fights that I fought in a cage and things like that. And that's fun, but that kind of like satisfied my fun, itch to scratch when I was, 23, 24. As I got older, I realized I don't want to make a living out of getting punched in the face. And that really created a little bit of a shift. When I was in the military, I got out to kind of further my career in the medical industry. As a medic, I picked up a lot of skills, but the skills that they train you to do in the military, they train you far above and beyond what you're able to do as a civilian. And so I learned really quickly in school that I was going to have to spend a lot of time in school getting more education on stuff I was already educated in. And so it was very easy to kind of shift when I had the opportunity. I was taking martial arts classes again, just for fun as a student, and I had a guy that offered me an opportunity to earn a salary, and that was my last semester of college. I was attending Austin Community College, and that was, I guess, 8 years ago now. I started off, I was like, it totally hit me that this could be my career. I could turn my hobby into a career. And through that, I was given my own jiu-jitsu program. I was teaching beginners, and that kind of moved me around to a couple of different opportunities, and I found myself in Waco, and that's where I met Mindy. So Mindy, how long have you been training?
I've been training for 6 years in December, and I just started doing jiu-jitsu because I wanted to learn how to protect myself. I actually started striking, and then I didn't think it was cool to get punched in the face, so I stuck with the ground game, which is jiu-jitsu, and it gave me a lot of self-confidence that I can protect myself and everything. But I'm from Waco. I graduated from Vanguard, and I went to Baylor, and I graduated with a degree in journalism in 2003. That shows y'all how old I am. And for a few years, I was an editor of a small agricultural newspaper. And then I moved back to Waco and started jiu-jitsu, and that's where I met Lance.
Yeah, so we've, I think it's important in the jiu-jitsu community, at least, that people know that she was training jiu-jitsu before we met. There's a lot of instructors that'll try to drag their girlfriend into training, and then they stick with it. But Mindy was tough before I met her. Anyway, I want to kind of flash forward a little bit to kind of catch up to where we decided to take this on as running our own business. We were in Colorado. We had an opportunity to manage an academy in Denver that had over 360 students. To give you an idea of the size, like what kind of magnitude that is of martial arts academy, the industry standard is if your academy has 200 students, you're in the top 2 percentile of martial arts academies. So this academy was super successful. It was, we were grossing like $35,000 a month, and I was the general manager, and I brought Mindy on as, to help me out with a lot of the duties, and we had a son. We thought, we need to get a hold of some of that free daycare. We need grandparents nearby. So we made a decision to move back to Waco, and there was kind of a real pivotal moment that we had. Our son was early and premature, and so we had some time while he was in the the NICU before we could bring him home and actually like get going on with being mom and dad. And we had a conversation. I asked Mindy, okay, we're going back to Waco. Do I job hunt? Do I look for a job, a career, something that can support my family? Or do we do this? Do we go into a business? And she gave me the green light to say, let's do this. Let's make this happen. So super risky, zero savings, nothing. We moved back to Waco. We had, I literally had a bunch of friends that I trained with. There was an academy in town that we trained with, and the owner of the academy, we spent 3 weeks training at this academy. The owner was present twice. And so in that kind of situation, I realized, well, there's not really an opportunity for me to help grow this business because that owner had no incentive or at all no intention of helping us out with giving us a job opportunity, anything like that, creating growth in the academy. So we decided to do it ourselves, and without a savings, we started teaching out of our garage. I had, what do we have, about
12 to 15
students.
students.
That was the magic number, that 12 students. We were teaching out of the garage, which eventually moved into the living room. We're literally choking each other underneath the chandelier, and that was the dining room. And it was fun. I had college professors come into our house in Cameron Park and doing classes at noon and at 6 o'clock all week long. And it was great to have that kind of support, some friends that we had known from when we lived in Waco before. And with that, there were a couple of them that saw the opportunity to invest into us, and that was what got us started. We were teaching out of the YMCA a little bit, but we had 3 investors, and they each put forth $5,000 worth of capital. And so that $15,000 paid first month's rent and the deposit on all the electric, just the basics. We bought mats to put in a new facility, and we were off and running. We had 13 students when we opened our doors, paying like a monthly tuition. And that grew to, we have 152 students now. That was February of last year that we opened. So almost 2 years, February will be coming up on 2 years. We've got over 150 students, so we're well on our way to hit that 2 percentile mark that I was talking about earlier of having more than 200 students. And that's been a goal of mine since we opened the door, because I feel like when we hit that mark, that gives us enough momentum to do anything we want to do with the business. We can grow it, we could maintain it, we could add a second location, we can put instructors in schools in the elementary and the middle school here in the area. And so that's really kind of gets us to the next part of what we're about. It's real important to me, like I went through a lot of personal growth in my 24 years of martial arts, and that growth skyrocketed when I started training jiu-jitsu. There's something about the way that we practice that has you challenge yourself and discover unknowns. And so as an instructor, I kind of see the value in showing other people like a path to finding out what they don't know that they don't know. Finding a game plan so that they can be comfortable while they're in that unknown of figuring it out. Like to give you an example, who knows much about jiu-jitsu, like what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is, like as far as like what moves we use or anything like that? Anybody have an idea? Yeah.
Kind of. I watched a lot of UFC when I was young, and one of my favorite fighters was Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a lot like when you get on the ground, you're looking for rear naked chokes, leg triangles, arm bars.
I think the key piece where that fits into why I think jiu-jitsu is so valuable is that 9 times out of 10, a real fight, 2 people get into it, whether it's over an argument or over a serious situation for self-defense, they get to a fight, 9 times out of 10 it goes to the ground. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that is our domain, that's our home base. Our focus, our foundation is built on the worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that can happen? And so when you can learn how to think clearly and maintain your game plan while somebody's trying to choke you unconscious, you become very calm under pressure. And that's something that I see that you can gain through training jiu-jitsu. It's not something that some people have it and some people don't, right? Whoever feels like they're a little nervous before a test, all you really have to do is just spend time knowing that, well, that test will be over and it'll have a grade, and either it'll be good and I don't have to worry about it again, or it'll be bad and I got to focus harder. So as long as you have that ability to look past it and know that I can survive that situation, then you have confidence in that situation. And that confidence, the more confidence you have, the less your nerves kind of have control over you. So what we're about is giving people access to that. When they come in and train with us, they don't know what they're looking for. They just want to learn something new. And then when they start to train, they start to spar and kind of swim in surviving these uncomfortable situations. They start to get a little bit more confident. They start to feel a little bit more comfortable in these uncomfortable situations. And so I want to give people access to that. And so how we do that is we have classes. Right now we have classes Monday through Friday at noon, 6 p.m. And these classes are set up to whether you're a brand new beginner, you've never trained a martial art a day in your life, or you're a skilled expert, you can come into this class and gain some experience. And so we also offer courses that are specific to unique demographics, like, for instance, a women's self-defense course, right? Most of the time, it's been my experience that women don't want to come in and get on the ground and wrestle with sweaty guys and call that learning, right? That just doesn't seem to be the case. And so that's where Mindy becomes like one of the most valuable players in our academy, because I can't tell a woman this is what you should do in the situation if I'm a 200-pound professional athlete. It just doesn't translate. They don't have the same confidence. But if Mindy trains day in, day out, and she has 250-pound, 200-pound men trying to hold her down, trying to make her submit, and she survives those situations with success, then what she tells you, that's what you need to know. Now, all of that comes from the instruction that we go through in class, so it's kind of like her putting a woman's stamp of approval on, no, trust me, this stuff works. If you practice it, if you study it, it works. We also offer these courses for people that are just interested in checking out jiu-jitsu. Like, jiu-jitsu could be anything. You could practice it to learn how to prepare yourself for a street fight, but after you enjoy training jiu-jitsu, I haven't been in a street fight since I started training jiu-jitsu. So I'm not really training for a street fight anymore. That's the last thing on my radar. If somebody puts their hands on me, I'm not worried. I know what's going to happen. They're going to go to the ground. I'm going to make them say, I'm sorry, And that's through practice that I have the confidence to know what I can do and what I can't do. It's not so much that it gives me an arrogance to know I can beat up anybody. It lets me know what I can survive to a very close degree. I know what my abilities are because I practice so often, about 4 or 5 hours a day. And let's see, I get off track with that. So I was talking about the different courses. Oh yeah, so we have courses that are also street self-defense courses that could train you for, these are specific to how to do jiu-jitsu while your opponent's trying to punch you in the face, right? And then we have courses that are set up for competitors. We have competition training that at my level, since I don't really get into street fight scenarios, I compete at a professional level. I get invited out. It looks just like an MMA event. There's a stage, there's lights, there's walkout music, there's smoke, all that kind of fun stuff. And I get paid to show up and make somebody say I give up. And so we have courses that help people prepare for that arena. But I think that's one of the key pieces, is that no matter what you're looking for, if you're 5 years old and you want to learn how to not get bullied on the playground, or if you're 65 and you just want a fun way to get fit, you can do that with jiu-jitsu. I think that's really all I had prepared for today. I think I hit it with
Talk about how we grew the business and what steps we had to figure out.
Yes. Okay, so I do not have a college education beyond I've got about 80 credit hours that I took, some of it from the military training and some of it through that, but 0 of it is in business. It's all in starting IVs and taking care of patients, things like that. So I guess when I mentioned before that I started, I was offered a salary to train martial arts. Well, it was actually at a traditional martial arts academy that half of the space was reserved for traditional training, mostly children doing an after-school daycare type business. It's a super successful business model. We just haven't gone that route because I'm not a big fan of being a babysitter and calling it something else. When students come to us, they're there to learn self-defense. So what I did is I sat back and I would watch the business owner of the traditional martial arts academy that hired me, and I would sit back and watch him and not just evaluate what worked, how successful his techniques were for bringing in new students and converting them into clients, but also what business practices I didn't really feel were too ethical. And so it's really been a big focus of mine for at least the last 8 years that I walk a line. And I want a balance in my business that anything I do on the martial arts side doesn't impact my business negatively, and anything I do on the business side doesn't impact the martial arts negatively. To give you an example, if everybody that came there was focused on becoming a lethal killer, and I come in and I've never trained a martial art a day in my life, and somebody breaks my knee, well, that hurts the business, right? That's an environment that my customers aren't safe. So I have to make sure that when we train hard so that it's effective training, but we have rules and parameters that keeps people from getting injured. So that if I'm a soccer mom, I could feel safe in that class, you know? And so that balance has always been important. You could also look at the other side, how the business could impact the martial arts negatively, would be like if every time you came to class I was asking for you to pull your checkbook out, there's going to be a point where you're like, you know what, it's not worth it. If every time you come in I'm trying to sell you on this, we have our leadership course, and you could come an extra day a week, get private classes with me, it's only $500 a month, no big deal. That's a steal for the bargain. Well, that puts a negative taste in the mouth of anybody that's there just to learn self-defense. Anybody that's there just to focus on developing themselves, right? It also, I don't know, part of my focus is I'm not a big fan of treating my students with like preferred treatment. Like if you have kids, you might have a favorite kid, but you don't want to tell them. No, you don't want to spend so much time on one client that you neglect the others. And with Mindy and I, we run the entire operation. We're the accountants, we're the janitors, we're the managers. We make the phone calls, we teach the classes. And so having that balance of having the freedom to treat everybody the same allows me to give the same information to somebody that's been there a month, that I've been working with for 6 years. That's been a big part for me in maintaining that balance. Now, we did have to do a lot of reaching out to gain some information on running a business. So I have a friend that super successful. His martial arts academy grosses about $50,000 a month. He's got plenty of employees, and he's been so successful that he actually put a challenge out to himself this year. He's in the Austin area. His challenge was to open a new academy each quarter and make it cash positive by the end of the quarter. He's done that. We're in the last quarter, and he's working on his 4th academy. And he does that through, he has these trained members, but he's very tuned in to his lead generation, right? He uses lead pages to collect information, and he's constantly keeping in contact with these people. And that's really a big key part. Anytime that I've wondered, where did that student go? It could almost immediately gets followed by the idea or the remembering of, oh yeah, I didn't talk to him for like 3 weeks. And then they just kind of come in and go. And so that makes a huge difference whenever I'm able to make eye contact with everybody in class, everybody that walks in the door, and have a touch on each person as they come in. They get a piece of what they came there for. They get an opportunity to ask a question. They get an opportunity to tell you about what they're going through in life and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's really, that kind of pulls me back to something that drives us a lot, or at least it drives me a lot, is that I had a friend, has a tire business, and his tire business is super successful. He changes tires in this business that he owns. And he could totally hire employees to do it for him, and it makes enough business, enough profit, that he could totally just sit back and collect a check in the mail. But he says that I know that if I'm in that building, if I walk through that door every day, it's going to succeed. And if it fails, it's because me. Like it's my fault it fails because I'm the one there every day. And so I really took that to heart. He said, opportunity knocks all the time. The problem is it's wearing overalls and looks like hard work, right? You have to be willing to get out there and put in that work. And that really comes back to like how Mindy and I got our start. Starting off in our garage, teaching class a couple of days a week at the YMCA, and then that opened up the opportunity. It built the momentum up to where we could open our own academy. Yeah. What else?
Can you touch on a little bit about the transition from going from garage living room to an actual storefront academy?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge
It is.
difference.
So there's 2 key pieces. I picked up a book that helped me out a tremendous amount I talked with Professor Reynolds, and he mentioned he uses that same textbook, so that was a good call. I accidentally picked out the right textbook. Essentially, it's designing a business model. I sat down, I bought a big stack of white poster boards, and I got out the Sharpie, and I just started drawing. Who are my clients? What's my product? It's stuff that I knew, but when I put it on paper, it created a flow. And that flow would let me know anytime that there's a hiccup, anytime I'm not getting the results I want, I could go back and start at the very beginning of that flow and work my way through. And if I redirect my attention back onto that business model, then it's almost obvious when I work my way through that flow, I'll find my missing piece. I'm not making contact with my clients, or the big one now, my fun stuff that we've had a lot of success, but now our success is limited on my knowledge of finance, right? That's something that I didn't go to school for, so I have to figure it out. Nobody ever taught me how to make a budget, And I'm like, wait, you mean like on a spreadsheet? Like actually put numbers on paper? I just kind of look at what I got, and that, however you handle your personal finance, that's not going to work for your business. So I seek a lot of counsel on that. I've got a lot of friends. One of our investors, we're fortunate enough, one of our investors is a financial advisor here in Waco, and so he's been a good help in that. But when we started writing out that business model, it started to make it very clear to make my checklist, because when you start thinking of a business starting from scratch, it's a big pile of things that need to be done. And if you're not constantly kind of sorting that pile and reorganizing and reprioritizing the items on that, then you could spend your time doing the things that you want to do and not the things that you're supposed to do, right? I might not have gone to college, but I'm a master procrastinator, right? I know you guys are pretty skilled at that, It's just a college trait that they teach you freshman year, but that's really where whenever I sit there and I'm looking at our growth and I see that it kind of hits a stagnant point or anything like that, I stop back and I go, I know what I need to do. It always falls back to the same. For me, it's phone calls. I have a hard time making that cold call, right? Until I start thinking about, no, wait a minute. I'm not calling somebody to get them to come in. I'm calling somebody so I can give them jiu-jitsu, so I can put that in their life. And when I go back to why I do it, it always makes it so simple to start dialing numbers, right? See, another key piece, go ahead.
Back to the transition on moving from the garage to the business. When he read the book and made his business plan model, we had to sit down with our investors and go over it with them and make sure it was something that they agreed with. And especially one of our investors' wives, she was very concerned about that this wasn't going to work, but her husband believed in us. And so it just took $5,000 from 3 people to get us started. Then the next step was getting a name for ourselves. We called ourselves Yager's Martial Arts. His dad owns a business called Mr. Yager's Martial Arts. So we're Yager's Martial Arts, but we wanted to be more broad than that. And then the next biggest expense was finding a space to rent and having the deposits for that. And our mats are pretty expensive too.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I can't tell you how many notepads, how many pieces of paper got crumbled up over coming up with a name. Because I put a lot of importance into that, mainly because, essentially, if you look at Apple, that's the name of a fruit. And somewhere, somehow, somebody went, no, they'll buy it. They'll do it, right? It's a piece of a fruit. We couldn't call it orange jiu-jitsu, but we were sitting there, and then when Mindy mentioned, she said, what about Select Jiu-Jitsu? It kind of hit me like a truck. Like, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I like the fact that it's, okay, so like on the subliminal side, it's telling them to select jiu-jitsu, to choose it. And then select, immediately I thought, well, my competition it's not the other martial arts academies where the instructors don't show up. That's not it. Because I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to teach all my classes. My competition is baseball, soccer, football, right? All of those kids that are athletes. How many people played football, baseball, basketball, soccer, volleyball? Yeah. How many of you are still athletes in college playing those same sports? Okay. Yeah. So that's a very small percentage. So I sat back and I thought, all of those kids going to school, their parents are pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and getting them private coaching and all this. And only a small percentage actually enjoy it like wholeheartedly that they're going to keep doing it no matter what. And I was thinking, I was a bench warmer in high school and in school. And it wasn't because I wasn't an athlete. I went to a small school and I showed up late. The teams had already been picked. They'd been playing the same baseball position since T-ball. And I show up about 4th grade, hey everybody, and they're like, oh, we got left field open, you know. Sometimes. Other than that, there's the water bottle, just have a seat, you know. And that's pretty much how I spent my sports, you know, and I wasn't excited about that. Nobody's excited to work the bench, but when you're training martial arts, there's no bench. Everybody is completely involved, completely learning how to be an individual and learn how to develop their own skills. So that attracted me. And that's what I really see that our competition is these people that invest their time and stuff into these sports that the reality is 95% of those kids will not play after the age of 18, you know? And so when you train martial arts, well, I'm 32, I'll be 33 on Sunday. I'm not stopping anytime soon. I'm gonna do this stuff till I'm 90 years old, you know, until they tell me to get out of here, you know? And so I really wanted to create that opportunity, you know.
Do you want to talk about creating our website?
Yeah.
And then how we collect people's information and how we don't spend very much on advertising?
Yeah. So our marketing budget is about $150 a month. It's Google AdWords. I accidentally, so I designed my own website. I use Weebly. In Colorado, I had a friend of mine that worked at the Dell Tech Center there, which is huge. It's a massive IT world over there. And he said, well, you know, he went and pulled up 4 or 5 websites that I thought were professional. He was giving me some coaching. And he scrolled to the bottom. He says, you see that? That means that they made this on Weebly. And this web designer charged somebody $1,000 or more to design a website that had an out-of-pocket expense of about $145 a year, you know, to maintain the website. And he showed me, it's all click and drag. It's grab your YouTube link, drop it. It's, you know, put your give me a phone call link and drop it. You know, insert your picture, make a slideshow, all that kind of stuff. You guys can totally check out selectjiujitsu.com. I made that website. Let me know what you think. Drop me an email if you got any pointers or advice. But yeah, we made our own website. And when I said I accidentally signed up for the wrong Google AdWords, there's 2 different forms of Google AdWords. There's like the Google AdWords Enhance, and then there's Google AdWords Express. I couldn't even tell you right now which one of them I have. One of them is designed for small business. One of them is designed for like Coca-Cola, Under Armour, Nike, these big major. I accidentally signed up for the one that's the major provider. It's cheap. I have a $150 spend budget. I don't even spend it all month. I only pay by the people that click on my site. I get plenty of traffic. 5 to 10 leads a month just show up from that. And that's, Mindy and I run the whole show, so that's all I can handle anyway, hardly. But that mistake has been a huge piece in us getting new students.
When people type in martial arts in Waco, we pop up at the top of the list, and we'll get people that train at other academies calling us thinking it's their school. And I'm like, your son's not in our classes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that comes back to, so I've got a friend of mine. He's actually, his wife is old school friends with Mindy since way back when they were little kids, and he's been friends with Mindy since college. He works at the Dwyer Group. They do franchising and all that kind of fun stuff. And so he gives me some coaching, you know, on a regular basis. But he said, hold on just a minute. Let me do some little JavaScript on your back end of the website. Boom, it turned everything on. I mentioned earlier, I was talking about Professor Matt Cordon. He works over at the law school. He's actually really, really phenomenal professor. He's been my student since day one, or since we opened. And he just happened to minor in IT. And he's like, oh, I know some HTML. Let me get in here in the back of your website. And, you know, and so now we've got our Twitter and Facebook feeds are at the bottom of our website. I don't know how to do that stuff. They figured it out, you know, and that's huge. So now every time we post, it boosts up our search engine optimization. We get more visible. And what Mindy was talking about, that's my favorite phone call. We probably got at least 10 phone calls of saying, little Johnny left his uniform at home today. And I have to say, well, I'm sorry, but I don't know a little Johnny, and I teach all the classes. And well, yeah, this is Central Texas family. And I'm like, oh, no, ma'am, this is Select Jiu-Jitsu. So would you like to bring him in to try out one of our classes? You know, always take that opportunity, you know, don't miss it. But what happens is they Google search martial arts. Our phone number, click, boom, is right at the top. They don't even pay attention. They just click it and go for it. Nobody pays attention if it's an ad. Somebody told me that one time that, they see if it says ad on there, they're going to scroll right past it. No, they click the first one. They're using their phone. They're not going to scroll and zoom in and try to read the article. They're going to click. 95%, our Google Analytics tells us 95% of our traffic's off our mobile device. So that's another thing with Weebly. What I really had the most success with is that I can go in there and customize my website to look good on a phone. And I know how to do that myself. And again, I have no IT experience, no web design experience. Yes?
One comment and a question for you guys. So one other thing you can do, we started a SAT test prep business in Waco. And the lucky thing you have in small towns is you can lock up all of the names. So we have Waco Test Prep Waco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so y'all could have, martial arts Waco martial arts, and then you redirect those to your actual name, because a lot of times people don't remember a specific name, but if they're searching generally, so those might be other ways. So that's like $10 a year.
Yeah.
And just lock up all the names, so if anybody else ever comes, you've got all the names.
We already have it.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing. Man, that's killer. Yeah, absolutely.
But here's a question.
Yeah.
You can't do that in big towns because somebody else has already done it. So a lot of our students are entrepreneur, they're excited to start a business. How much if you had started your business, say when you were 25, 28, versus going and working at these other businesses and kind of paying attention, like you mentioned, seeing what you liked and what you didn't like, because even though I teach entrepreneurship, I don't always encourage students just to jump in right out of school. Because I think there's some value in kind of, working for other people and seeing, learning from that experience. I mean, how would it have been different? Do you think you would have struggled more? Do you think all of that experience paid off for you?
It'd be hard to say that I wouldn't be where I am now, right? And I don't know that I could tell you I wouldn't be that far or I would be farther ahead. But I think that's a key piece. Essentially, what I learned when I was in Colorado and I was managing this academy, one, I learned what an academy could be. I saw how big it was. It's the nicest martial arts training facility I've ever seen. And so it gave me some sights to set my academy towards. But what it also allowed me to do as a general manager is any kind of idea I had I had a lot of freedom. I was lucky that the owner of the academy was lazy, and so he asked me to do everything, and so that gave me a lot of opportunity to say, yeah, let's do a parents' night out and invite the kids in so the parents could go do a dinner and a movie and come back and pick their kids up. That's huge. That's $35. They'll drop their kids off. How much you pay for a babysitter? $40, $50? Pay $35, your kid gets to learn a martial arts lesson and watch TV and all this kind of stuff, or watch a movie and eat pizza. They have a blast, but what it was is I got to operate the business with somebody else's checkbook. And what that allowed me to do is my freedom was within, that's great, just don't put us in debt over it. It has to be positive. So from day one, as soon as I was given that role as a manager, every idea I actually executed had to be cash positive. It had to produce a profit, right? So there was no stumbling around and we'll see if this works. No, I had to be able to plan it out and say, okay, we're going to spend this much and it's going to bring us in this much or we'll never do it again, right? And the ability to do that whenever we opened, that's my wheelhouse. I can smell an idea and go, oh, wait a minute, that's got some risk attached to it, or no, that smells fruitful, right? It's like testing a ripe piece of fruit, I just got an instinct for it. But again, that's really a key piece to us getting started the way that we did with our investment. We were so fortunate to get as much as we did, but how many businesses get started off on 15 grand? That's hard to do, Now we had a couple of key pieces is that they didn't have to pay, the business didn't really have to pay the employees because we run the whole show, But from day one, we haven't had the freedom to, kind of experiment. We've been going right to the things that are going to be successful. They're going to have a positive impact. And that kind of brings me back to another piece. I didn't really talk about it, but I'm really, really passionate and firm on not going into debt for growth. And so we have a credit card for the business, and it's been my arch nemesis this whole year. I've just been dumping every extra dollar I have to get rid of that thing. And then it's going to get some plastic surgery. I'm going to get rid of it. But anyway, I think that's huge. I know that that's not always possible for every business venture. I mean, a lot of businesses require special equipment and stuff like that, but that's been a key ingredient for us for sure.
Are they supposed to talk with this?
Did y'all hear how she said, I can talk loud?
So, okay. So, like, what's your 5-year vision for the company?
I just wrote those down last week. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve on New Year's resolutions, set my goals early. I want 300 students. I think what really got me in Colorado was that when I was involved with the academy and the environment was kind of maintaining that amount of students, 360 students, I was really satisfied and content with the amount of impact I was having on people. The amount of people that came in, and there's something magic that happens with jiu-jitsu that it's hard to describe, and most people think I'm full of it until they do it. But when you're in class and you're on the mats in your uniform and you're practicing and somebody's trying to choke you and you're learning how to choke them back and all this kind of stuff, you're not thinking about your test on Tuesday. You're not thinking about your bills or your wife or your husband, or you're not thinking about your boss giving you a hard time, or I got to do the dishes, or I got to do laundry when I get home. You're not thinking about that. And so if I could only give that hour a day of peace of mind to these people that come in and train with us, man, I want to replicate that over and over and over again, because that gives me satisfaction. You know, I'm happy that I get to be that piece of their day. I mean, especially we've got a little guy. We don't get much us time, like me time. Like, you know, I was just telling Mindy last night, I just need, if I could have an hour a day where I just sat outside and didn't do anything and just lived inside my own head, I'd be the happiest person on the planet. But I don't have it. I don't have it. What did we get, about 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep last night? I got 3 hours of sleep last night, so that was fun, you know. But I call that Wednesday. I think in the 5-year term, I definitely want to have at least 300 students. I'd be happy with that impact. That would, you know, definitely bring some satisfaction and let me know I've accomplished something. Mindy, what do you think? What do you want to do in 5 years?
I would like to have.
I'd also like to have more students. 300 sounds great. I'm good with 250 because I just think that number is good. And I would like to have either a nanny to come and watch our son at night so I can train and be able to do more business work, or hiring a manager or a part-time manager, because it's just stressful, us two having to do everything. We take care of most of the cleaning, all of the phone calls, all of the internet stuff, all of the sales, all of the classes, our son. Yeah.
We do a lot of stuff on the fly. I mean, we use iPhones and iPads and everything like that. I couldn't tell you how many phone calls have been made at the drive-thru at Starbucks that I sign up a new student or invite them in for a class. You know, it just happens. Yeah. That's cool.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, what was that textbook that you were discussing earlier that helped you with your planning, the business planning and structuring?
Yes. It's the one that Gib Reynolds uses. It's I think it's literally called like Business Model Designer. If you look at the front, it's kind of like a rectangle-shaped book. It's white. It's got like sketches done on the front. There are diagrams that kind of make sense as you get into the book. Here's the reality. Mindy mentioned earlier that one of our investors had a wife that was she's an MBA student. I think she graduated last year, and she said, "Well, I'd feel more comfortable if you read through this book." And I thought, okay, so I went on Amazon. I got the book, and then I read through it, and I showed up to the next meeting with the investors, and she was there as well. And I started going through the business model, and then I turned and I said, "Wait, is that correct?" And she said, "Oh, I haven't read the book." And I'm like, okay. And then I just shifted and I said, so that's the way we're going to do it. It's going to go like this and like this. I was totally hoping that she would jump in with her smart ideas, you know, and that just didn't come, you know. So she just felt more at ease knowing that I had a game plan, I guess. I don't know. Yes.
Okay.
Growing, say in 3, 4, 5 years, you reach your goal of 300 people. Do you foresee having to hire people, or do you all want to do it yourself still? Or I know you mentioned having like a part-time manager, so you can spend more time with the family. What's kind of that?
I would love to show up 15 minutes before my class. That would be wonderful. That would be awesome.
The jiu-jitsu is a fun part of it. We would just love to be able to show up, train, teach class, go home.
Yeah, that's totally the goal, for sure. There's actually, we've got, I was just talking with Mindy about this. I don't even know if it's enough of a goal to talk about, but I'm going to be applying for the fire department here in Waco in the next couple of months. Essentially, the schedule, most firefighters, if you don't know, there's probably about half firefighters have side businesses that they run. They're real estate agents, they're heating and air conditioning technicians, they're entrepreneurs as well. And I just happened to start my business first, but this would give me an opportunity. Firefighters work 3 days a week. And so I can run my business, and Mindy's totally capable of running it when I'm not there. And so that would give us an opportunity to increase our income, have a stable income, which is something that living these last 2 years would be nice, to have like a paycheck that shows up on the 1st and the 15th or something like that. It'd be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yes?
Talk about some of the challenges and opportunities tied to launching a business specifically in Waco.
People thinking they know how it works. I think I've ran into a lot of people that that'll give you pointers but don't have the experience, right? And I think at the end of the day, I kind of have to go with my gut on a lot of it. We spent a lot of time looking at real estate. I know our real estate agent hated our guts because we just kept going the next bit. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. Because I know that, okay, it's just like your personal finances. What's your biggest expense? Well, it might be student loans, but it could be your home, right? And for business, that's my biggest overhead is my rent check that I write every week. My hand shakes every time I put that, every month, yeah. Every time I add that comma to it, I'm like, oh. I've been late a couple of days on my rent check, not because I didn't have it, because I don't trust the Dropbox. With a check like that, I go, I see you, I'm going to put it in your hand, I'll see you next month. I walk, that helped us out a lot. I hand walk my paycheck or my rent check to the landlord. And what that opened up for me is that our first spot that we had was 3,000 square feet. Do you guys know where Land Sharks is? Yeah. So we're next to Land Sharks and Golden Books off of Franklin Avenue. And there was a Caritas thrift store, and we were in one of those spots. And it was 3,000 square foot. And because I walked that rent check in, and I talked with the people that were around us and stuff, I spoke with the people at Caritas. They moved last year in October. And I heard that through the grapevine, and I went to the landlord, and I was like, Caritas might get mad, but they're moving anyway. So I went to him and I said, what's this I hear about Caritas? And he goes, as soon as I said that, he went, oh, they're moving. Would you like to move over? He saw it as he's not going to have to float the rent on that place or float the overhead on that place until somebody else rents it. He could have an immediate tenant scoot over. And now he's got to lease a 3,000 square foot instead of the 6,000 square foot space that we're in now. And he gave us a killer deal on the rent. And I completely attribute that to me walking my rent check in and speaking with the landlord, shaking his hand every month. Yeah.
And as for, we just said that we don't really think other martial arts academies are our biggest competition, but we do know all the other schools that exist in town, and we know most of their owners. And there are a few jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts schools. They just don't have very many students. One was right across the street from us. We moved in there when we heard that their owner was moving to Austin, and he didn't go to Austin, and he got mad at us for stepping on his toes. And we said, well, we were going to find a different place to lease until we heard you were moving to Austin, so we got this spot. And he was very jealous. All of his students, most of them, train with us now. And then traditional martial arts schools here, there are 2 or 3 big ones, and they have so many students, but I just consider them different than us because they make you pay for the kid. They start their children's classes at 18 months old. I know my 18-month-old son couldn't do martial arts, but I think they just take money from people so they can, oh, you're going to get a new belt today, give me some money. And we're different than that.
Which I totally understand. We're at a business school, and you guys are like, wow, sounds like a great idea, right? That just comes back to us specializing in what we do. right? We could totally do that, but it would draw attention to it would draw attention away from what we're good at. And we're kind of sticking with our wheelhouse of what we're skilled at and know about and know we can have success with. I kind of wanted to hit back. You had mentioned something about specific to Waco. I think that people don't realize that Waco is not the small town it was 10 years ago. And that's been huge for me, is that we have the experience in Denver to operate as though we're in a huge market, and this market is growing every day. If you don't believe me, go try to buy a house and watch how fast it disappears. You know, there's people that our best friends are showing up to go to check out a house, and then the other realtor's sitting there going, "Oh, sorry, somebody's closing on it." Like, wait a minute, it just came on the market today, you know? And so there's people flocking to Waco. We have students that fly here, that come here from California and all over. It's a common story that's just, I'm hearing more and more as we go, that people are looking for cheap housing. You know, I mean, it's affordable here in Waco, and there's enough big business here that it can be sustainable. I mean, SpaceX and all these big mega businesses. Baylor, yes, absolutely. There's big opportunities in Waco. And I kind of like that. I come from a really small town, and I like to say that Waco is like a big city full of small town people. You know, I mean, like, it's a huge city, but I can't tell you how many times we go somewhere and Mindy's like, so I went to college with their sister and that's person over here, and oh, let me tell you about, no, she's not a gossiper, but anyway, yeah, I like that. I like that I can sit down at Lolita's or something and on the bench and have a conversation with somebody I never met. You know, that's something in a big city you kind of put your blinders on and don't have that interaction, which makes it easier to tell them, hey, you know, I run a jiu-jitsu school, you should come over, you know.
As y'all continue to grow and have success, is owning y'all's own space something y'all thought about?
I'm studying that. I'm kind of weighing how nice that would be to not have to write that check each month with the liability. There's a lot of insurance that comes along with owning your own real estate, and I would think that our business, we'd have to hit that 300 student goal and maintain it for a few years before that's even on our radar, to be honest. 300 students would put us grossing in the ballpark of about $30,000 a month, and that's something that we could maintain a low overhead and stash some cash away. Again, even if I'm doing commercial real estate, I'm hesitant towards debt. I want to write a check. There's more power in that. It might take me longer to achieve it, but it's a sweeter reward when I get to the end of it. Yes?
As you kind of perceive your real competition as kind of other sports like baseball and soccer, how do you think that jiu-jitsu benefit? How do you attract people from those?
So that's a good question. One, it could be just giving most of the parents put their kids in, okay, let's say you have a baseball team. And I use that because where I come from, that's the big sport in my hometown. I graduated 100 people, but baseball's it, because we could find 9 to play a game, right? But about maybe 20% of the parents really legitimately try to push their kids into taking it far and being successful at their sport. The rest of the kids, their parents are just putting them in something to give them some activity, to get them out of the house, to make them interact with other people. And the two big things that I look at is, one, if they're going into these sports because they want to be competitive, because that makes you a better person to try to be stronger and faster today than you were yesterday, then you can do that with jiu-jitsu. They have professional we took 2 of our students. So my last competition, I lost. But that's okay. I got paid, so it's all right. It's better than losing when I pay to go lose. But we competed in Killeen, and I took 2 of my students, age 12 and Emma's 15. They're professional grapplers now. They got a check to show up and compete. That's a thing. What football player gets a check at 14 years old, at 12 years old? Ethan's only 12 years old. He did phenomenal, you know? And he also, a lot of times these other sports will kind of present it as something that is, it's good to build team building skills. Well, I always realize that if I'm on the bench, I'm not really a valuable member of that team. So how am I really learning how to be a valuable member of a team if I'm not given value, you know? Whereas in jiu-jitsu, it's an individual-based sport. So you get to learn how to be in a team because you're in class, and if you're a kid and you act up, you're doing push-ups. So you have to follow the rules in the environment, so you have to cooperate with everybody in the class. But also, the real skill that you're learning is that, well, one day those kids are all going to be 18 years old and they're going to have to go out on their own. And now they're strong individuals. They know how to stand up against somebody. If somebody presents a threat, their experience will tell them to look them up and down and go, well, I've fought somebody like you before. I'm ready. You know, even if that's not the self-defense type engagement, they have the confidence to know, like I was saying earlier with the test example, well, I'm going to survive this. So whatever it is, I'll be on the other side of it.
So then do you guys kind of promote like the psychological benefits of jiu-jitsu? Like I know she mentioned that women would feel more comfortable after taking the course compared to prior. Do you think that?
For sure. I do definitely in my marketing, I focus way more on the benefits than I do the features, right? I mean, I kind of think features like clean training facility, clean bathrooms, an accessible instructor and stuff like that, that's got to be a given. Like, I don't even want to count those as a benefit. It's not. It's a feature. But the benefits is definitely, that's the primary, I guess, the primary tool that I use to get people enrolled into jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I feel like I'm neglecting this half of the 6 people over here. What other kind of questions you guys have? Can I ask some questions?
That's 1:30.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a quick question. How many people in here currently have like a side business or something that they do on the side that produces income? Yeah. Cool. I think probably the number one feature that I like to focus on that I don't really talk about a lot, but with the martial arts, I can take just about anything that crosses my path in life and run it through my filter, my martial arts filter, which tells me if I'm good at it, keep doing it. Like, focus on my strengths. If I'm bad at it, I still need to spend time developing my weaknesses. Now, it doesn't need to be the majority of my time because I can survive well on my strengths. But if I look at just like practicing an arm bar or a hip toss or like throwing somebody down on the ground or whatever, well, there's only one way to get good at it. You just have to do it like 10,000 times and you're going to be like an expert at it. So it's the same thing if it's like, I've been thinking about that with I mentioned finances earlier as something that's a new world for me to really dig into. Well, if it's a monthly budget, it's not good enough for me to learn once a month for 2 hours. So I spend about 15 minutes every day with my business and my personal budget until I don't have to think about it anymore, until it becomes second nature. So it's like a daily practice of every day I'll pull up my finances on my iPad, my phone, my computer, whatever, and organize it. Okay, this is what's going on. This is what's going to come in. When it comes in, I'm going to spend it like this. Okay, got it. I got a game plan. Let's do it. And then I move forward. If I do that every day, it's very hard for me. I'll catch a hiccup coming. I'll smell it coming. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Just the other day I went, insurance. It hit me that like, oh yeah, it's not too far away. They're going to be hitting me up for a year's worth of insurance. Like, okay, so I got to start stashing that away now. When I was going through my budget, I went, I see what's missing from my budget. What do they call it? A sinking fund. Whenever you take, okay, I have a $1,200 expense for the year, so I'm going to put, $100 each month into this small fund so that at the end of the 12 months I can write a check. I started adding those type of expenses into my budget, and I would have never done that unless somebody told me or unless I spent every day. I just kind of go through those details and figure it out.